Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Venezuela's military announced 24 security officers were killed in the U.S. military raid that led to the abduction of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on Saturday. U.S. officials assess overall 80 people were killed in the attack. Meanwhile, Venezuelan officials are cracking down on any expression of support for Maduro's abduction. Journalists have been detained. Armed paramilitary groups have been deployed to quell dissent. This comes as the CIA reportedly concluded in a briefing to President Trump that senior Maduro loyalists, including the country's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, were best positioned to ensure Venezuela's stability. On Tuesday, Rodriguez vowed to defend her country.
Y esto es lo que el presidente ha llamado el reto admirable 2020.
This is what President Maduro has named the Remarkable Challenge 2026, a Venezuela that refuses to surrender, a Venezuela in active resistance. Venezuelan are a dignified people, a peaceful people forging their own way. It's Venezuela that has demonstrated to the world one true character, that we've become stronger, that we've grown spiritually to confront the challenges, the attacks, the threats.
President Trump says Venezuela will give between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil, worth $2 billion, to the United States. In a post on social media, President Trump said, quote, "This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States of America, to ensure it'll be used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States!" Exclamation point. Reuters is reporting the oil was slated to be shipped to China, but will be redirected to the U.S. China has been Venezuela's top importer of crude oil for over a decade. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has reportedly told lawmakers in a briefing President Trump intends to buy Greenland instead of using military force to seize the autonomous territory controlled by Denmark. This comes as White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said President Trump has not ruled out the use of troops to take over Greenland, saying in a statement, quote, "The president and his team are discussing a range of options to pursue this important foreign policy goal, and of course utilizing the U.S. military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal," she said. Meanwhile, the foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland have requested a meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the near future, according to a statement posted Tuesday to Greenland's government website. Previous requests for a meeting were not successful, the statement said. The U.S. pledged to provide Ukraine with security guarantees for the first time, which include binding commitments to come to Kyiv's aid if Russia attacks again. The pledge came at a summit in Paris of Ukraine's European allies, attended by U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. French and British officials also signed a declaration to deploy troops to Ukraine after a ceasefire. Meanwhile, Ukrainian authorities say an overnight Russian attack on Kyiv Monday killed at least 2 people. In Gaza, Palestinian families said they felt optimistic amidst mounting reports, including by Al Jazeera, that the Rafah crossing with Egypt could soon reopen after more than 2 years of Israel's war and blockade. Qatar has accused Israel of political blackmail for hindering efforts to reopen the crossing and ensure the delivery of urgent humanitarian aid for hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. The reopening of the Rafah crossing was a condition of the first phase of the U.S.-brokered truce between Israel and Hamas, which Israel has repeatedly violated since it went into effect in October. Doctors Without Borders announced Tuesday Israel had ordered the aid group to immediately cease all operations in Gaza, claiming they'd failed to comply with new restrictions, including sharing detailed information about Palestinian and international staff, funding, and operations. In news from the occupied West Bank, at least 11 Palestinians were injured after Israeli forces raided Birzeit University Tuesday, north of Ramallah, reportedly firing live rounds, sound grenades, and tear gas on crowds. This comes as Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar was in Somaliland on Tuesday. The visit was strongly condemned by Somalia and came just over a week after Israel became the first and only country in the world to recognize the breakaway Somali region of Somaliland as a sovereign state. This is the de facto leader of Somaliland.
It reflects not only political recognition, but also a shared commitment to transform that recognition into a substantive, forward-looking, and strategic partnership.
In Iran, over 24 protesters have been killed during the past 10 days of protests across the country. That's according to human rights activists news agency, which reported at least 34 protesters have been killed and over 2,000 arrested. The protests began on December 28th over Iran's worsening economic situation, including a collapsing currency and high inflation. Many attribute the economic crisis partly to harsh U.S. sanctions against Iran. The Department of Homeland Security says it's arrested 150 people in Minneapolis following a surge of 2,000 ICE agents to Minnesota to probe alleged fraud at child care facilities. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem accompanied ICE officers during an arrest. In the video, she tells the handcuffed man, "You will be held accountable for your crimes," unquote. Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz said the ICE officers were not cooperating with local authorities and were simply a, quote, show for the cameras. The Trump administration slashing $10 billion in funding for social programs for families with children in 5 Democratic-led states. Trump officials have claimed the move is due to alleged fraud concerns amidst the recent scandal in Minnesota involving fraud at child care facilities. But Democratic lawmakers have condemned this as an act of political retribution. The 5 targeted states are California, Colorado, Illinois, Minnesota, and New York. Among the impacted programs are the Child Care and Development Fund, which subsidizes daycare for low-income households and assistance for parents living in poverty to receive cash assistance for diapers and other needs and attend job training. The group Fair Share America said in a statement, quote, "Rather than an isolated decision, this is part of a clear and dangerous pattern," they said. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the primary funder of PBS, NPR, and many local television and radio stations, has voted to dissolve itself. The CPB vote came after the elimination of federal funding and what its board called sustained political attacks, unquote. The CPB had been in operation since 1967 with the aim of supporting non-commercial and educational public media throughout the United States. The Texas chapter of the American Federation of Teachers filed a lawsuit Tuesday against Texas's Education Department for targeting hundreds of educators for their social media posts on the assassination of the right-wing activist Charlie Kirk. The lawsuit says, quote, "Public school teachers and other employees do not surrender their First Amendment rights simply by virtue of their employment," unquote. The lawsuit's challenging a letter sent by the Texas Education Department to school superintendents instructing them to report educators who made, quote, "reprehensible and inappropriate," unquote, remarks about Kirk. California Republican Congressmember Doug LaMalfa died at the age of 65, according to Republican officials. His death narrows the GOP's majority in the House to just 218 seats over 213 for Democrats, following the departure of Republican Congressmember Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. LaMalfa was a prominent ally of President Trump and challenged the outcome of the 2020 election, voting against certifying the results. And speaking to House Republicans at their retreat Tuesday, President Trump warned that the Democrats would impeach him again if the GOP does not win the midterm elections.
You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached. We don't impeach them. You know why? Because they're meaner than we are. We should have impeached Joe Biden for 100 different things.
President Trump then wrapped up his speech with a bizarre dance before the lawmakers. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.